Welcome to Season 4, Episode 14 of ARBinBRIEF. Today we have the pleasure of hosting Crenguta Leaua and Annekathrin Schmoll for a discussion on old problems, new methods, can tech fix everything? We will look at where tech makes a difference, where it misses the mark, and how that shapes the future of arbitration. We're not promising answers to all of you, but we're definitely bringing the questions. And today we're trying out a new format for us. Annekathrin will kick things off by raising some of the classic problems that many of us face in practice, and Crenguta will respond with her take on whether new tools and technologies offer real solutions, or perhaps they just offer new twists to the existing problems. We've picked 3 topics to explore today: technical experts, insufficiently reasoned awards, and case management. And without further ado, let's dive in. Now, the first topic, Annekathrin, to get us started, could you walk us through your experience with technical experts and the challenges you have had to deal with?
Thank you, Olga. And yes, I love to. In one of my previous arbitration proceedings, we had to deal with a lack of technical expertise of the arbitral tribunal. In these proceedings, the understanding of the technical deficiencies was critical. To address these and the overall technique, the parties submitted both each detailed expert opinions. The tribunal then analyzed these expert reports and then conducted expert examinations in the oral hearing. This was extremely costly and prolonged the proceedings significantly. I was wondering if the involvement of a technical secretary in a role similar to an arbitral secretary to assist the tribunal from the very beginning would be the more efficient approach. And yes, I think it's a good idea, actually, especially in cases where a clear understanding of the technical matter is crucial from the outset. With the technical secretary, I think from the beginning, the subsequent party-appointed expert reports, if there are still some needed, could focus more precisely on the real technical issues. Ideally, the technical secretary is jointly appointed by both parties.
Now, Crenguta, when you hear these issues that Annekathrin is describing, do you think technology offers real help here, or are we just layering new complexities of technology on an old problem?
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for this question, because my honest belief is that the technology can only assist in solving the problems we identify. So it's limited to our own definition of the problem and the solutions that we anticipate. So which is the problem that we are talking about? To me, it seems to be the limited technical knowledge of an arbitrator. So not the reasoning, but the amount of knowledge of a specific information, the technical information. To that, we have several solutions. First, one can get an arbitrator in possession of the right knowledge. The technology would be called to replace the arbitrator, basically, because always a database operated by an AI would hold more information that a human can hold. And nowadays also structure that information and making correlations. So that would imply an AI arbitrator altogether. To me, though this is a fashionable topic, it is profoundly problematic as it puts into question the very foundation of our societies, because under the theory of the social contract, we humans agreed to give power over ourselves in the justice system to other humans, not to animals, not to objects, not to mathematical algorithms, for sure not to robots, so only to other humans. But then let's look at the second solution. And the second solution, if one cannot get an arbitrator already in the possession of the right knowledge, is to transfer the necessary knowledge to an arbitrator on an ad hoc basis. That would mean a trainer, a tutor, a professor that would teach on a fast track the arbitrator whatever it is needed for a specific case. This is doable, especially if the AI would be trained on the information put into its database by the parties, so somehow controlled in terms of its accuracy. Basically, it would be to automate a phase that exists already in some proceedings worldwide, especially in US, but also I heard about it in some arbitrations, in which before the main submissions, there is a phase in which the judge or arbitrator is informed strictly on the technical matters, the language, the definitions needed for the comprehension of the later submissions. And the third solution, and that is, I think, the one that was already addressed by Annekathrin, is to get a source of external knowledge to be accessible to the arbitrator. And that is the traditional tribunal-appointed expert assisting in various moments of the proceedings, be it all over the proceedings, at a certain moment in point in time, or at the time when, for instance, the parties have narrowed down with the party-appointed arbitrators the topics, and then on those that remain in dispute between the party-appointed experts, we have a third one appointed by the tribunal. Now, in Eastern Europe, everybody knows the concept of a tribunal-appointed expert because it's basically the main type of approach, and the Prague rules reflected that internationally. Whether this can be an AI expert assistant, well, that can be built, of course, with some need to fully understand the concept and fully understand how it works in terms of the information that it gets. Roughly, that would be my my input on this topic.
Thank you so much, Crenguta. You provided us with a great lead into the next topic, because you say we wanted to transfer decision-making to humans, but humans are very often imperfect. Annekathrin, the second topic was insufficient reasoning in awards, and that is something that many practitioners find frustrating. Could you describe where you see the biggest gaps and why it's so problematic in practice?
Indeed, it is sometimes very frustrating. Yeah, once we received, I'm sure I'm not the only one, an arbitral award with only a very brief and poorly reasoned decision. Of course, what can I do? I could initiate set-aside proceedings, arguing that an insufficient reasoning is an equivalent to a lack of reasoning, which under certain legal systems, for example in Germany, could lead to annulment. However, as we all know, chances of success are typically very low for setting aside an award. So,
Crenguta, is there a role for technology in addressing this? Maybe through tools that help, the arbitrators structure the reasoning a bit better?
Well, good news is that most of the problem definition and the solution are already designed by the main arbitral institutions in their checklist in the help of the arbitral tribunal when drafting the awards. So those checklists already somehow automated and standardize the structure. To that, obviously, automation is rather possible because comparing a text with a given template, it's something very easy to be done nowadays by an AI, and also signaling the missing parts is possible. Now, what else can be possible? Suggestions as to the structure, for instance, looking at the structure and see if it matches a specific logic, a specific algorithm, or even drafting parts of the award, like, for instance, procedural timelines, a list of issues could be also possible, but they have their pros and cons. And let me address those, the key element of this pros and cons. The idea is basically to delegate work. So the more one delegates, the more one needs to control the outcome of the work that has been delegated. Whoever was in a management position understand that. So whether it is easier to do something yourself or to control others, well, honestly, ask everybody that it is a professional, which one it prefers. Not managers, but professionals. Professionals usually have a hard time delegating because they do understand very well how difficult it is to control the outcome of the work. Basically, you should know more than the one that you are controlling, and how predictable is that you are going to know more that the huge database is questionable. So to that, I think some cautious has to be on our minds when approaching the automation of reasoning. And in the end, it will be the human quality that would give the outcome anyway.
Crenguta, tagging onto that point that you said, is it better to do something yourself or hand it over to a machine? On our third topic, which is case management, it can sometimes feel like herding cats. So the question is, Annekathrin, tell us, in especially large disputes, what have been some of the big hurdles you have seen or experienced in terms of case management of the proceedings?
I think extremely lengthy and redundant submissions. That is a huge hurdle. Although in one of our arbitrations, for example, we focused only on the key issues and kept our submissions concise, the other party submitted always extremely lengthy and redundant briefs. Even there were little instructions from the tribunal to concentrate on the essential points, this did not help, unfortunately, at all. I don't have to say that this behavior unnecessarily increased the burden of the tribunal and delayed the proceedings. So what to do? I think that an arbitral tribunal should exercise its discretion in such escalating cases even more actively, and should remain close to the case and actively manage such proceedings. Yeah, okay, but what does this mean? Well, the tribunal, for example, should make clear that the procedural discipline is key and will, at least in the cost decision, be taken into account. Further, I think that the final cut-off dates are even more essential in such cases. These should be set from the early stage on, and the tribunal should remind the parties repeatedly. Further, I think additional case management conferences and calls are very helpful. During these calls or conferences, the tribunal can prioritize issues and indicate where it still expects further arguments or not. This could narrow down the dispute, from my opinion, step by step. Of course, with all that, the tribunal must keep in mind the parties' right to be heard. However, this does not mean that the arbitral tribunal should be scared of that principle.
Now, Crenguta, Annekathrin talked about arbitrators and exercising discipline. But for those arbitrators that just do not want to exercise that discipline themselves over the proceedings, are there tech solutions that could help them to ease the case management?
Well, your question goes to a definition of the problem, and you chose the definition of the problem as being the arbitrator who doesn't want to impose a procedure, so the lenient arbitrator. But whether this is a problem or not, or whether this is a solution, it is a question in itself, because humans being lenient may not be a problem, may be something good. So the choice in between the two, I think it's always difficult, and that is an aspect that cannot be delegated. So the very choice, should I be lenient or should I be strict? That's not something that you can automate. That's the core human choice. And just to remember something fun of my very early days as a young lawyer. It was my tutor at that time. It was the time of the databases, not the time of the AI. And I asked him, well, if we have all these kind of databases, why do we need a tutor anymore? Why can't we just learn from that? And he answered me with his brilliant humor. He was a person with a lot of experience, and he told me, my dear, you do not need a tutor or a maestro to learn what to say. You need a maestro in order to learn when to keep quiet. So the idea transferred in this situation would be that you do not need technology in order to be strict. You perhaps need something that would be able to make the choice in between when to be strict and when to be lenient. Now, if we want to be strict, then we have a technology, and that is the blockchain technology. The blockchain technology allows a creature that is amazing, which is the automated contractual behavior. So the automation of the human behavior that has to be compliant, and these are the smart contracts, the so-called smart contracts. And with that, you can put on, for instance, on the platform, some obligations that cannot possibly be accepted. So, for instance, you cannot be lenient on those. It is a strict deadline. You cannot receive afterwards any kind of extension of anything. You do have a strict limit of pages. The extra pages are cut off by the system, etc., etc. You do not get to the next procedural step if you have not complied with the previous ones. So you can automate that. But like I said, whether it is preferable to do it or not remains to be seen.
Thank you both, Annekathrin and Crenguta, for this discussion today. I think it was a great example of how different the role of tech could be in arbitration depending on a specific problem. Thank you everyone for joining us. To see future ARBinBRIEF videos on hand-picked arbitration issues, please follow us and subscribe. We look forward to welcoming you to our next episode.